In Part 1, we saw Phase 1 of Superjet 2245's flight as the pilots got their IFR clearance, pushed back from the gate, and taxied out to the runway. Now let's see what happens as they take off and enter Phase 2 of their flight.
Superjet 2245, runway 28 right, position and hold.
Superjet 2245, taxi position, hold 28 right.
Superjet 1173, turn right taxiway Echo, contact ground 125.7.
Right on Echo, ground 125.7, Superjet 1173.
Once the aircraft that just landed has cleared the runway, Tower can clear Superjet 2245 for takeoff, and the pilots will run through the last part of their before takeoff checklist.
Superjet 2245, runway 28 right, cleared for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 28 right, Superjet 2245.
Hold line, please.
CAS checked.
Cleared.
Lights and strobes are on as required. Flight attendants advised. Transport TCAS are auto on. CAS checked and cleared before takeoff check. Rolling
Set
complete.
thrust.
Thrust set.
The takeoff roll is one of the most critical phases of flight for the pilots. Once they reach a certain speed, called V1, they are committed to takeoff because there won't be enough runway left to safely stop. That's why the local controller must be absolutely sure the runway is clear of any aircraft or vehicles before issuing a takeoff clearance, and must continue scanning the runway as the aircraft takes off.
80 knots.
Checks.
V1 rotate. Positive rate.
You're up, speed mode.
Superjet 2245, contact Academy departure, good day.
Contact departure, Superjet 2245. CAS checked.
Cleared.
Academy departure, Superjet 2245, climbing 2,400 for 5,000.
Superjet 2245, Academy departure. Radar contact. Climb and maintain 9,000. Upon passing 3,000, turn right heading 010.
Climb maintain 9,000 upon 3,000, heading 010, Superjet 2245. 9,000 set,
Coming right, clear right.
clear right.
Sapa 4203, turn left heading 100, vector 25, approach course.
100, what's up, 4203.
US Air 97, turn left heading 180, vector 25, approach course.
Yes, sir. 180.
Let's see, fuel crosswind is auto, APU leads are set, and lights and passenger signs
Down 6,000,
are as required. Thrust reversers are off. CAS checked and cleared. Climb check complete, Captain.
After takeoff, Superjet 2245 will fly what's called a departure procedure. This procedure tells the pilots to fly a certain heading after takeoff and to climb to a certain altitude. These pilots happen to be flying the call-in departure procedure, which you may recall hearing during the IFR clearance. The call-in departure procedure tells the pilots to turn right to a heading of 310 after takeoff and to climb to 5,000. The controller just told them to climb to 9,000, but she can't give a different heading until the aircraft climbs above 3,000 due to noise abatement procedures at Academy Airport. These procedures help minimize aircraft noise over populated areas around the airport. Instead of waiting to issue the turn later, she told the pilots to start the turn once they reach 3,000 feet. Superjet 2245 is now entering Phase 2 of the flight. During this phase, it is under the control of Academy Departure. Academy Departure is responsible for both arrivals and departures at Academy Airport. At some facilities, these responsibilities are split between different controllers, but here one controller does both. Arriving aircraft call this controller Academy Approach, while departing aircraft call her Academy Departure. This controller's task is to get arriving aircraft to the airport and cleared for an approach, and departing aircraft on their initial headings and climbing to 12,000 feet, which is the highest altitude Academy approach can use. The next facility Superjet 2245 will talk to is Aero Center, and procedures require that all aircraft entering Aero Center's airspace do so through one of these 4 gates called departure gates. The controller will vector Superjet to this gate, called Colin because of the Colin navigational fix located here. Once the aircraft is clear of other traffic and climbing to 12,000, the controller can hand it off to Aero Center for the next part of its flight.
Superjet 2245, climb and maintain 12,000. Contact Aero Center 136.0.
Climb and maintain 12,000 and 136.0, Superjet 2245. Aero Center, Superjet 2245, climbing through 9,000 for 12.
Superjet 2245, Aero Center, climb and maintain flight level 350.
Climb and maintain flight level 350, Superjet 2245. Up to 350, Captain.
Check.
Superjet 2245 is entering Phase 3, or the en route phase of its flight. It's now under the control of Aero Center's northern sector. Center's job is to get Superjet climbing to its cruising altitude and established on its route of flight. Once the aircraft has climbed above 13,000 and the controller is satisfied that it's separated from his other traffic, Superjet 2245 will be instructed to proceed on the route it was given during clearance delivery. The controller has to wait until the aircraft climbs above 13,000 because his airspace starts at that altitude. Within this boundary, Academy approaches airspace ends at 12,000 and Aero Centers begins at 13,000, leaving a buffer of 1,000 feet in between, thereby ensuring that the required minimum of 1,000 feet of vertical separation will exist between traffic in both sectors at all times.
Superjet 2245, proceed on course.
Superjet 2245, on course.
Since the aircraft was on a heading of 010 to take it out of the departure gate, the pilots can't leave that heading until instructed to do so by the controller. The instruction to proceed on course allows the pilots to start following their specified route of flight and to continue following that route unless instructed to do otherwise by ATC. The pilots are now turning to intercept J123. The J means it's a jet route, and the number is simply for identification. Each of these lines represents a jet route, which converge at different kinds of navigational aids.
Captain, you like the seatbelt sign off?
Yeah, you can let them
Alright.
Generally speaking, during this phase of flight, the aircraft will just follow its route without any instructions from ATC, unless the controller needs the aircraft to turn or change altitude for traffic or weather, or if the pilots need to deviate for weather or turbulence. Superjet 2245 has now reached its first navigational fix, the Miami County VOR, and is turning to follow J157 to its next fix, the Kansas City VOR, and is continuing to climb to 35,000 feet, or flight level 350. When the aircraft is nearing Aero Center's sector boundary, the controller will hand it off to the next facility, Kansas City Center, and once the handoff is accepted, he will transfer radio communications.
Superjet 2245, contact Kansas City Center 127.0.
127.0 for Superjet 2245, thanks. Kansas City Center, Superjet 2245, flight level 190 for 350.
Superjet 2245, Kansas City Center, good afternoon.
Superjet 2245 has now reached the Kansas City VOR. The next point on their route is the Fort Dodge FORTAC.
Superjet 2245, contact Minneapolis Center 134.0.
Hey, 134.0 for Superjet 2245. Minneapolis Center, Superjet 2245, level 350.
Superjet 2245, Minneapolis Center, roger. Superjet 2245, descend pilot's discretion.
Cross the Fort Dodge Vortac at flight level 290 and join the T-Wolf 1 arrival.
Superjet 2245, cross the Fort Dodge Vortac at flight level 290, descend at pilot's discretion, join the T-Wolf 1 arrival.
Center has instructed Superjet 2245 to cross the Fort Dodge Vortac at a specific altitude, flight level 290. The instruction to descend pilot's discretion means that the pilots can start their descent whenever they want, as long as they cross the Vortac at the specified altitude. They have also been instructed to join the T-Wolf 1 arrival once they reach the Vortac. This is a standard terminal arrival route, or STAR, which is a published arrival procedure. It provides the aircraft a specific route to follow, which is shown on this chart. Once instructed to fly this procedure, the pilots simply follow the instructions on the chart. This frees up controllers from having to provide step-by-step instructions for routine procedures and helps reduce radio frequency congestion. Not every airport uses STARS. Academy Approach, for example, uses radar vectors for all arriving aircraft. STARS are often used at airports with large traffic volumes. At this point, the pilots will try to listen to the Minneapolis ATIS. Even though they're still pretty far from the airport, radio frequencies often can carry over long distances. Pilots are required to check into terminal radar facilities with the most current ATIS code, so the crew of Superjet 2245 will have to listen to it before being transferred to Minneapolis Approach.
Captain, I'm back with you. Let's see, altimeter is 301 for the landing, 30 right and left, and overcast at 1,500 feet.
The pilots were able to receive the ATIS, so they'll do their approach briefing now. They'll be flying on instruments soon because of the weather. Instrument flying requires a great deal of attention, so getting things like the ATIS and the approach briefing done early will reduce some of the crew's workload in the busy airspace around Minneapolis.
Initial altitude's 7, depending on where they put us in. The inbound course is 299. The frequency is for localizers 110.3.
While the pilots are briefing, they're entering a system of clouds around the Minneapolis area, so they'll fly on instruments for the remainder of the flight, and they'll be totally dependent on ATC for separation from other aircraft.
Superjet 2245, descend pilot's discretion, cross target at 1000. Minneapolis altimeter 3014.
Superjet 2245, cross target at 11,000, descend at pilot's discretion.
Most busy approach controls will have procedures that require certain types of aircraft to enter their airspace at certain altitudes. For example, this STAR tells pilots of aircraft heading to Minneapolis to expect to cross target at 11,000.
Superjet 2245, contact Minneapolis Approach 126.905. Good day.
126.905, Superjet 2245. See you later.
That's the end of Part 2. Watch Part 3 to see what happens as Superjet 2245 flies the approach and landing phases of its flight. What is an aircraft's takeoff speed called? A. Minimum safe speed. B. V1. C. 150 knots. Or D. V2. The answer is B. V1 is the takeoff speed and varies depending on the aircraft's weight and atmospheric conditions. What does a STAR do? A. Provides step-by-step arrival procedures for pilots. B. Reduces frequency congestion. C. Reduces controller workload. Or D. All of the above. The answer is D. All of the above.